Welcome to the House of Nettles Podcast, where today we're talking about 28 years later with me, your host, Mark, and we got,
Morgan.
yes, we got
And
Morgan.
here on the podcast, we talk about all things pop culture, TV, movies, and pretty much anything else we want to chat about.
All of it, everything, we're going to talk about it, we're going to discuss it, but I want y'all to remember first, go over, follow us on YouTube. When you get done with that, go over to TikTok. You can follow me there. I got plenty of videos talking about a wide variety of topics. So make sure,
hmm
be there or be not there, but you're going to be there. I know you are. I know you are. And share the episode with your friends and all that.
hmm
Yeah, but before we really get into talking about all that 28 inches later, let's talk about what we're watching, what we're talking about, what are the topics.
Yes, before we talk
Yes.
about 28 years later, so we don't
Years.
confuse people.
Come on, come on.
So we don't confuse people. And because I think our parents listen to this show also.
I
Just want
mean,
to remind you.
when they see the movie, they gonna know
Yeah,
Jamal.
yeah.
I was right.
Spoilers for the movie.
Spoilers.
But this week, well, it's been 2 weeks because I think we took a break last week for a little vacation time. But in the last couple of weeks, we did a lot of things. So we had like a little mini staycation. I went out of town. We went to Universal Studios in Orlando, as you can see
I got
by
it.
the cool Jaws 50th anniversary hat. And we had a blast. We actually planned the trip, got there right at rope drop, and we were able to do 5 rides in about 3 hours. So it
Yes.
really helps when you go on a weekday. So did you have fun since I dragged you to the theme park?
I had fun going through all the rides, walking around the park. It was hot. It's the summertime. It's
It was
hot in
hot,
Florida,
yeah.
but it was a good time. It was a good. I had good company as well.
I think it helped because we had a cooling towel, we had a fan, we were like in and out of the gift shops and things like that. So I think that helped us to stay cool as long as possible. But because the rides, like all the wait time, I think we didn't wait longer than 25 minutes for anything. We weren't really in the AC for as long. I think sometimes like that's the one good thing about standing in line for a while is you do get a little bit more air conditioning. But because we did the park so fast, we were really like in and out, and we didn't have to be outside in the hottest parts of the day. So
Yes.
that was nice. But I am curious, what were your thoughts about riding roller coasters and stuff in your 30s? Because I kind of felt like even though I had a really good time, in the back of my mind, I was almost wondering like, at what age could I see myself no longer wanting to try to do a roller coaster?
Never until the wheels fall off, baby. Until the wheels. I enjoy getting on the ride and just going wee as I go around the corner. Like it's still exciting to me. Uh, I, it would probably really depend on how much my body aches trying to squeeze
hmm
into a seat, or if I'm able to. Because some of the rides, what you don't know from the outside, you have to walk up a good amount of steps. If you got
Yeah, yeah.
knee or back problems and you're not accounting for the while you're waiting the walk upstairs, I feel like that can be a detriment to people getting on those rides.
For sure. And I think so sometimes I get motion sickness like on cruise ships and then if I'm in the backseat of a car. So I took a little like anti-motion sickness pill for the roller coasters, which I've never gotten sick on a ride, but it was like a just in case thing. And I think that's one thing that can help it because there's sometimes as you get older, like your equilibrium and your tolerance for things changes. But
Yeah.
I felt like what I have noticed over maybe like the last 10 years is definitely I have a lot less tolerance for like the super jerky rides because we rode Transformers and by like a couple hours later, I definitely had a headache because that ride was really just all over the place. And that's also why I don't really do the Simpsons ride anymore as much as I love it, but it's just so jerky and kind of rough on the body. So maybe I feel like I maybe got another 10 years in me for some of those like harsher rides or some of those older rides, but I still love the experience.
Yeah, I do think the Transformers one had the most like bright light effects. I was like, oh my gosh, I can get a headache from this.
Yeah, that 3D was kind of it was like a little blurry and it was like just blurry enough to where I could definitely see if you especially if you wear glasses and then you have the 3D glasses over, you probably would get a headache.
Which I do. That's why I had to start going to 3D movies. I'm like, this is not comfortable anymore.
And
Um,
he almost lost his hat. on one of
Oh my
those
gosh,
rides.
I
So when
would
they
have been
say
so
take
upset.
off your hats,
They should have told me that before. I did enjoy the Men in Black ride. That was always fun. Been a fan favorite.
cheated
One
on the
of
Men in
us
Black.
had an extremely high score, in the hundreds of thousands. One
hmm
of us couldn't even crack twenty
Was
thousand.
living in the moment, having fun,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the scenery of the ride. And yes, I was beat by like a little 8-year-old child.
Yes, yes, blew out the scope.
But you had like 124,000 points, and I was like, how can you even get that many points on this ride?
Because like Easy E said, I'm a sniper with a hell of a scope.
So was
Mm-hmm.
that your favorite?
No, you know what? I don't support the author, but the Gringotts ride was probably
Mm,
my favorite out of all of them. Luckily, we got to do that one first, and it wasn't a huge wait for it.
mm-mm,
Huge crowd. Yeah, I can see that the wait probably extended as later got into the park because as we were leaving, there were just so many more people poured into Universal
mm-hmm.
Studios.
Yeah, they were, and I liked Escape from Gringotts too. I feel like that one is the best with like the theming. It was super cold in there. I'm surprised that was your favorite though. I thought for sure you were going to say Fast and Furious Supercharged
I mean,
because
that Fast and Furious Supercharged is an internal favorite that I'll always love. I hopefully it never leaves the park. Just seeing
I
all
hope
the great
so.
things like the mini drones that he's riding on, the FBI agent who's one of my favorite characters in that entire ride. Like so much to love.
I hope they scrap it tomorrow. I hope it's the worst ride. I don't know what's worse between that one and Kong and Islands of Adventure, but I think those are definitely the two weakest rides in the park. So yeah, we had a blast. We had a good time there. We also yesterday actually watched an really good animated movie on Netflix called Lost
Lost
in
in
Starlight.
Starlight.
What were
Yeah,
your
that was
thoughts?
it was a great film, a great romance. We got to see
hmm
the romance from the beginning, middle, and the end, seeing how these two worlds are colliding. We have this extremely almost uptight young professional woman who just wants to be an astronaut, wants to uphold the legacy that her mother had built, and we got this dude. He's a essentially almost a failed musician, couldn't get over his stage fright, didn't have that motivation to really perform the music he loved in front of a large crowd, and how
hmm
they were able to help each other grow. I thought that was a phenomenal story.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't think about it when we were watching the movie, but after the fact, I felt like it reminded me a lot of how we're kind of where we were in our lives when we met. Because I don't think by any means like you had a career, you were happy, you were satisfied. So I wouldn't say that part connected with you. But I do think like you're a very creative person and you were trying to figure out how to bring more of the things that you really like to do into your life, into your professional life. And I was at the end of graduate school, and the same way like he chose to, well, he has to make a decision about whether or not he wants to support her professional dreams. And he's, well, I don't want to spoil it, but
Those
I would say
those.
just watch it. But a lot of the aspects of their relationship reminded me of our relationship, so I think that was also a big part of why the movie really resonated with me, aside from just being so beautiful. Like the animation was just breathtaking. It's like one of those movies that you could put on in the background and you could just not even, if you're not even watching the dialogue, like you can just enjoy the visuals. So yes, I would give that one a super strong recommend.
Yes, if you're an adult and you enjoy animation, please go try out Lost in Starlight.
Mhm. And even if you don't, I think like that's a really good movie if you want to kind of get into anime, or like maybe if somebody has shown you like My Hero Academia or One Piece or something and you really couldn't get into it. This one felt definitely like for adults, and it was really pared down. It didn't have any like costumes or anything like that. So I would say if you don't really like anime but you like romantic dramas, like if you kind of went to go see The Materialist and you didn't like that, you might want to watch this and be like, okay, this is kind of the love story I was looking for.
Yes, yes, please try it. And I know somebody wanted to quickly talk about Love Island. One of us.
Super quickly, so I am watching Love Island through TikTok. So I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of reactions. This is a really entertaining season. So I just wanted to put that out there and see if anybody wants us to watch or recap Love Island, maybe like once the season is over. Please let us know. That's
Please let
all.
us know. Yes, yeah. I get my Love Island fix either through TikTok or through the lovely Morgan right here. She
Mm-hmm.
keeps me up to date on what's happening and makes sure to send me videos if something too crazy happens. Like, you got to know about this. You got to know.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so on we go to the main part of today's podcast. We saw Alex Garland's 28 Years Later, and they gave us actually some really, really cool posters
Where's my
at
post-it
the
note?
theater. And if you're lucky enough to get one, they do also come with a map.
Yes.
Um, that may or may not contain some hints or spoilers of what's to come. But yeah, so I thought before we get into 28 Years Later, maybe we can each take a second and just kind of talk about our relationship to the franchise.
Yeah, for me, did I ever watch 28 Days Later or 28 Weeks Later in the movie theater? No. But I feel like back in the day, these were films that once they came on television, they stayed on rotation. Like back when MTV was playing
Mhm.
movies and films or FX, like these were films that would always come on. And that's my introduction to the franchise. And it looked different. It looked, especially that first one, it looked a little grittier. And I was just remember just always rewatching it. So I've probably never seen the actual theatrical version for either of those films.
Interesting. So I don't think I saw them in theaters either because I think I was in around high school age, maybe a little bit younger, um, when they came out. But one thing I remember from 28 Days Later in particular is like this conversation about the infected versus zombie. So like what makes a zombie? Is it have to be a person that's living or a person that's dead? And then I think I also remember one thing that really stood out in terms of like in the horror community to horror fans, how quickly you turned when you got infected with the rage virus. And this idea of like it doesn't have to come from a bite. It can come from just a drop of blood getting in your mouth or your eye or whatever. And then the runner zombie. So
Mm.
I can't remember off the top of my head if I think 28 Days Later came out before Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, but I remember just the first zombie scene in 28 Days Later when Cillian Murphy goes into the church and all the zombies kind of turn around and then they are all chasing him and you're like, "Oh, they're running. This is terrifying. Like how do you get away from a mass of running infected people?" And I think for me, it was one of the ones like even in this movie, the idea of even though they're not consuming you alive, it's still very terrifying. And I think a big piece of that is because like you don't even have a chance to it's not about cutting off a limb or anything. Like you have no chance. Like once you get exposed to the virus, that's it. You're done.
You have seconds, if that, to
Mhm.
make a decision.
And I so that's one of the things I really liked. Oops, sorry, I had to adjust myself. That's one of the things I really liked about the franchise as a whole. I liked that the first movie, Selena was like a cool, strong, competent woman character. And I like the kind of the odd tone of the first movie, kind of how it where you go at the end in the country house and everything. I think that just as we transition into the new movie, one thing I will say, I've seen a lot of people with negative reviews. I would say to me, the tone of this movie matches 28 Days Later more than it does 28 Weeks Later. So if you preferred 28 Weeks Later, which to me is like a little bit more of a straightforward zombie movie, I mean, not zombie, I keep wanting to say zombie, infected movie, zombie style infected movie, then you may not enjoy this one as much.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I probably younger like more 28 weeks later, but as I got older, I went to appreciate. All right, 28 days later is a better film, just because once you got to weeks, they it became more of an action film, action horror film than it was a horror with some action in it. And
Mm,
if
mhm.
you know the difference, you know the difference. And it really, I think 28 years later really brought us back to that. It's horror with some cool action set pieces in it.
Yeah,
Even
I
less
like
action, I would say.
mm, I like both movies. I like this one.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of the bad reviews and I was like, "Oh, that's really disappointing because I was really excited about seeing it." I do think it was another victim to the advertising was like a little bit misleading, but I still really enjoyed it and I'm looking forward to the next part that comes out next year.
Yeah, with I think Nia DaCosta is directing. I
I
think
don't know. I didn't
we'll
check
find out.
yet.
Yeah, I'm excited. It left it on a note where I'm excited to see how what they're going to do with the franchise, and we'll be talking about the whole story. So there will be spoilers for 28 years later. Yes,
So, just a quick synopsis. So, 28 years later picks up 30 years, about 30 years after the rage virus first hits the UK. And so, since that time, they have beaten back. Because remember, at the end of 28 weeks later, we showed like Paris and the rest of Europe has started to get affected. So, they've defeated it in the rest of Europe. And now the virus is isolated only to the UK. And the rest of the world has basically quarantined them. And they do patrols to make sure nobody comes on, nobody leaves, or anything like that. So we learn from one of the characters later in the movie that if you make it to, like, if you get anywhere near that zone, if you step foot on land, you're there forever. That's it. No negotiations. They're not coming to get these people. As far as we know, there's no rescue mission, and the rest of the world has just moved on. While everybody in the UK is just left to fend for themselves. So where the story picks up, we are with the family. Jimmy, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, Spike, and I can't remember his name, but he's a 12-year-old boy, their 12-year-old son,
it's
and
Spike.
Isla, played by Jodie Comer, and they
It's
live on this. Oh, go ahead,
Alfie Williams.
Alfie Williams. Oh, such a cute little British name, Alfie. That's adorable. What was I gonna say? So they live on this really cool island in the British Isles, and basically it is protected by the tide, so you can only come in and out of the island a certain point every day. And they do a lot of plot in the beginning of this movie where they pretty much tell you if you try to swim it, you get swept out to sea. So basically, as long as the infected don't figure out to wait for the tide, or they don't get lucky enough, then or either other people, they can't get out there. So we see that life has continued on. They live in a really small community, but everybody has a job. There's a little bit of kind of clues, and maybe some things are a little off there. And they have this policy that once a kid becomes a teenager, they start going out and kind of they leave the island, they go onto the mainland, and they want to expose them to the risks and the dangers so that they can do really important jobs in the community. And the community has a rule that if you go out, nobody can come back and look for you. And that also becomes important as the movie goes on. So where we start, Jamie has decided that even though his son is not 15, it's time for him to kind of go into the mainland, have this experience. And his mother, Isla, who is suffering from an illness, really, really is against it, but they set off anyway, and that kicks off the events of the movie.
Yes, yes, yes. So we're set up. We're ready to go. I thought they did a terrific job of just showing how the community works. We get
Hmm.
glimpses of it, looking at the walls of the schoolhouse where they're teaching the kids. It goes through all the different professions they can have or different jobs that are necessary for the community to function, like forager, hunter,
Hmm.
watchtower, all of it. So you can understand, like, hey, these strong set of rules are the reason they've been able to survive so long.
For sure. And I think it's pretty similar to any other like apocalyptic movie where you jump super forward in time, where you see that humanity has figured out how to survive. And usually it is by having some type of like rule structure, or, some, whether like it be a council, like in The Last of Us, or one person being in charge, kind of like with what's his name, King Ezekiel in The Walking Dead. But we usually see that there's like some type of government, and there's safety in numbers and people kind of sticking together. So I've liked that they did some of the storytelling through pictures, and like the conversation with the Aaron Taylor Johnson, the dad, was kind of drilling the information with his son. Because I think this movie has to do a lot of heavy lifting. Like we have to reintroduce the world, and we have to catch the audience up to speed about what's going on everywhere. So it's like, yeah, you get a really big exposition dump in the beginning of the movie, like the first 30 minutes. But I do feel like it's necessary because then we got to get caught up. We kind of got to see what's going on.
Yeah, we've been away from the franchise for a long, long time. Uh,
Hmm.
and I know some people tried to complain and say, well, what happened at the end of 28 weeks later? They said the virus was spreading all across the world. It's like in
Mhm.
one sentence when they said, hey, they contained the virus back on the island. We know, like you said, we know Europe won. That was it. We don't have to worry about that. You think there are any plot holes left from 28 weeks later?
Yeah, and I don't mind a retcon. I mean, I feel like just like with the Halloween franchise a couple of years ago, if you need a retcon to tell a story you want to tell, that's fine. You know, as long as you don't go back and forth like Terminator or Star Wars. Like I feel like, hey, this is what's established now, and we can go forward. So I'm curious, what did you think about the idea of Jamie taking Spike out to try to get him acclimated in kind of what Spike experience is going out and seeing this world for the first time?
Uh, I I I enjoyed how the whole town had come together. Like we see Spike getting ready to go out for his first hunt, and everyone's like, "All right, Spike, you do good.
Mhm.
We can't wait to see you. We got a big celebration planned for you." And you're like, "Oh man, they're all patting him on the back. Good job." But as we just saw before, we noticed that his mother is sick. Isla is sick. And at the beginning, we don't know what it is. Like, we don't know what illness she has. Of course, we learned throughout the film that essentially it was cancer and it was terminal due to the medicine they have. There's nothing they could have done about it anyway, even if they did catch it earlier. Uh, but when we see how she's acting, she seems like she's forgetting a lot of things going through your mind. Like, is it a mental illness? Is it some type
Mhm.
of terminal illness? Is it dementia? Like you're not sure. And so when we see him about to leave the gates with his dad, and the lady at the gates tells him like, "Hey, usually we wait for kids to be like 14, 15 years old, and your son's only 12." He's like, "No, I want to take him out." He knows his he knows his mom, the kid's mom, his wife is probably not long for this world, so he wants to give him a chance to not only prove his his manhood to the community, but to possibly toughen up because before what's going to happen to his mom happens, and that'll be the end of her life.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I thought that it was really interesting as you go through the movie, you kind of get more backstory to their family and kind of what's going on. And I thought it really kind of mirrored well. When you're a kid, you don't really know what parent is right or wrong, or you might think like dad is no fun, but you don't understand that dad is trying to protect you from something, or mom is this, or whatever. So I felt like we were definitely in Spike's shoes because Spike was going out to the mainland for the first time, just like we were. And he didn't really know anything about what was going on with mom because he was a kid and they wanted to keep the information from him. And we also, as an audience, were kind of left to get the scraps and try to figure out what was up with her, too. Because at first, I thought that maybe she had like a PTSD, maybe she had a psychosis, maybe she had some type of mental illness. And I was a lot more sympathetic toward Jimmy. As we can see, he has like another person on the island that he's interested in. And I'm like, yeah, if he's a caregiver for a person that is out of her, has lost her mind, she's battling with her mental health. I'm a little bit more understanding of him because we see him in the movie like he's training the son, he's doing dishes, he's cooking, he's doing everything for this kid because his partner is um, at the beginning, they showed her as being like very volatile, kind of violent towards Jimmy. So I think our sympathy lies a lot more with him. And then when we take him out, when they go out and we see he's a little harsh on Spike, but it's like, well, yeah, I understand that because you want your kid to survive. And then as we go back to the island and we get more context, it's like, oh, so she hasn't been like this for a very long time. I think we learn when Spike talks to his grandfather that Isla has points where she's good and she has times when she can function okay, and then we see her have times when she forgets who she is, she forgets where she is, what's going on, the context of things and everything. So I think that you kind of like maybe it's a little bit more complicated. Like she's not just a person that's locked up in a room who's completely lost her mind, and so for him to be already kind of moving on to another partner, like when Spike calls him out on it, I could understand why he was so angry and he was so frustrated because in his mind, he doesn't know what's going on with his mom because nobody has told him. So he still thinks she can be cured. And in the scene when they're hiding from the monsters and he even asks his dad like So you know what's going on with this fire that's burning, and then he finds out that it's actually a doctor. He's enraged at his dad. So it's a combination of dad is keeping secrets, so I can't trust dad. I want to save mom. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna. That's basically what kicks off the movie. Is he feels like his dad is not trustworthy and he wants to save his mom. And I think because he's a little kid, he's gonna make a little kid decision and do something really risky. But yeah, your heart just really goes out to Spike
Yeah,
as he becomes the main character of the movie.
yeah, because he feels like, why aren't we doing everything we can?
Yeah,
Like we can. There's still a chance. There's someone out there that can help her. Let's get her. And because he also doesn't understand the concept of medicines of what we had. You can hear about how we were able to treat different illnesses prior to the collapse of society. But you're like, okay, well, why don't we just do that? Like not understanding, like, hey, we don't have the materials, we don't have the tools. There's no way we can replicate that level of medicine that we were able to give to somebody, the level of treatment back then. But you're 12-year-olds and you want to save your mom. How can I blame you for that decision?
for sure. And I think it's a weird place to be in where like in a post-apocalyptic world, you kind of have to grow up really fast, and we see that with his dad. Like, hey, you need to kill this bloater. Hey, you need to kill this infected person. You need to see these things, but then at the same time be like, but you're too much of a kid to understand that your mom is dying, and for me to talk to you about it. So I think it adds to the frustration of nobody wants to tell me anything, but they want me to be exposed to this life or death stuff.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so we kind of skipped around a little bit, but maybe we should go back and talk about. We talked about how civilization has evolved, but let's talk about how the infected have evolved too.
Yes, that was a definitely interesting how the concept came about, and how the affected evolved. I'm gonna say that was probably my least favorite part of the film,
Mhm.
on how they did the affected, because we see now we have kind of three different groups. We have our normal runners that we've always seen that have been kind of mindless that just want to hunt any a human anytime they see them. Now we have bloaters, which are seem like overweight infected. They basically go crawl on the ground like a baby. They're eating worms, different anything they can grab. They're putting it in their mouth to taste it, and if they can chew it, they're probably eating. They look like they're about to explode all the time as well. So I don't know if that's gonna
Really?
come in. That's where our boy Spike gets his first kill. He shot a bloater right in the neck. Uh, and now they've also introduced what they term the alpha. The way they explained it was the virus seems to act in some of the infected like a steroid. It amplifies them. It buffs them up. And so now we have these infected who are muscular. They run faster. They're stronger. They literally rip the head and spine of straight out of person.
That was
So,
tough. Horrible way to die.
what a way to go. So in the main group we see on the island, they use arrows, and we see a couple of these alphas take multiple arrows, and they're not going down. And now I'm like, okay, I understand. We got to suspend our belief, but at the end of the day, they're still humans.
Hmm.
They you're saying the viruses mutated them, but to see them get shot multiple times and almost seem like they're not taking any type of damage. Like a couple of them got shot in the chest, and I'm like, okay, that arrow is pretty tough. How deep did that penetrate? Because if it touches your lung,
Right. I agree.
and somehow now the alpha is able to control the regular runners. They can yell commands and get them to do things to attack and do like formations, which is kind of a cool concept. But I just feel like they made the alpha maybe a little too overpowered.
Yeah, I'm see, I love zombie movies, but I don't usually like the ones where they're like for example, when I was watching this movie, I thought a lot about Train to Busan, the sequel too, and how it also had a really big time jump, and it was about like how civilization had changed and everything. And sometimes I feel like they just get too carried away with this idea of what is it like when the infected evolve? What is it like when zombies evolve? And I think that's when you kind of start to get away from a more grounded thing because it's like, but they are alive. So, like you said, if you get shot in the thigh, maybe you keep running until you can't run anymore because you're not feeling the pain. But if you get shot in the chest, you should still bleed out. like even with this, if it's an arrow, if it's a machine gun, whatever. So yeah, I'm not really super crazy about like evolving infected or evolving zombies just as like a type of a theme or an aspect or a plot point in a zombie movie or an infected movie. So I wasn't super crazy about that. I also don't like pregnant zombies like in the Zack Snyder Army of the Dead.
The
That
Army
was
of
like where
Darkness?
the
Was it Army
hmm?
of Dead or Army of Darkness? I couldn't remember the title.
I
It
believe
is.
it's Army of the Dead.
Okay, yeah.
That's where the movie lost me. Like when they started being like, "Well, the zombie has a bride," and da 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 da. I'm not super crazy about that, and I know that's just my personal preference. So it took me a little while to kind of like get settled into it. I definitely was rolling my eyes when the zombie gave birth to a baby, and the baby was a living baby, I was like, I
Yeah.
don't care. Like, I'm so tired of babies and apocalypses being, or even like a quiet place or whatever. Like, I'm just tired of the idea of, well, what happens if somebody has a baby? Now we got to take care of the baby. We got to feed it. We got to keep it quiet. It's like, I don't want the baby to be a hybrid or anything. Like, I don't really care about that.
And was she an alpha woman because she knew to get help from this woman to help? Because essentially,
Yeah.
Isla, the mother we see, she finds the pregnant zombie woman on the train, or infected woman on the train, and realizes she's pregnant, about to give birth. She's in pain.
Hmm.
She's scared. She holds out her hands. They squeeze each other's hands, and to help her push the baby out. And once she has the baby, cuts the umbilical cord, then the zombie woman almost attacks her. It's still undetermined. Like now, all of a sudden, well, now I feel good. I'm finna attack now. It's like, well, you had the smarts not to attack me the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of where I had to shift gears and kind of just decide like, am I going to be in for the ride with this movie? Like once he runs away with Isla. So well, okay, let me back up for a second. So once Jamie and Spike get back to town, they throw a party for Spike. Spike sees his dad, Jamie, having an affair with another woman.
Rosie.
He gets upset. He also finds out about the doctor who's on the mainland, who he feels who could potentially save his mom. So he sneaks himself and Isla out. And the rest of the movie, Aaron Taylor Johnson is out of it. They go on a journey to get to Dr. Kelson, played by Ray Fiennes, and he hopes to save his mom. So on the way, they like meet a Swedish soldier. They come across the pregnant zombie. They have a couple of run-ins with the alpha on the way to there. So at that point in the movie, I had to just turn myself over to it and be like, okay, we're moving away from a little bit of more of a grounded reality, like in 28 weeks, and we're kind of back to a little bit more of a almost like I don't want to say it's not a fantasy, it's not fantastical, but it's like a little bit of a off kilter, absurd world.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a lot of I tried to show it to you one time, but I don't think you were really into it. But it's this movie that came out in 2008. It's called Doomsday, and just super quick, it's a movie about a virus that happens in the UK, and they seal off same thing, I think. They seal it off, and then like 20 years later, this woman and her crew of like military people, they have to go in for something.
Mm.
And long story short, they find out that there are all these different groups and factions. Some people have like moved out to the countryside and they live in castles and they're cosplaying like medieval England. And all these like just weird things have happened as people have just rebuilt society after this fall. And it reminded me a lot of that movie actually. And I don't know if it's something to like that part of British culture. Like I saw somebody on Twitter or TikTok saying that this movie reminded her a lot of how an apocalypse would be based on British culture, which of course we can't speak to.
Ain't my culture.
But
I just know curry and beans. All right.
yeah, but it reminded me a lot of Doomsday of like it's just some weird people doing weird things because it's the end of the world, you know. Like we see another group at the absolute end of the movie. So I think if you just give yourself over to kind of like this is not a straightforward um zombie infected movie. It's actually a little bit more about kind of like childhood and death and some other themes. I think you can kind of enjoy it a little bit more, but I still could have done without the alpha zombie. and zombie babies and stuff.
Yeah, Afro Zombie Madness. But yeah, I think that is one of the core things, and we'll get to that in a second. But I don't know if you want to move on to talking about maybe these potential themes.
Sure. I want to mention one more thing. So
Yeah,
we did also talk. We met Eric. So this is a really small movie. Like cast is super small, plot is super straight through. So it's really not so much stuff that kind of happens. It's just that you're kind of getting the world. Well, stuff does happen, but I also think the world is kind of getting set up for the trilogy. But we do meet Eric, who's a Swedish soldier. He says his boat was sunk, and unfortunately, him and his people drift onto the island, and they're all killed, and he's the only soldier left. But his character is really important because he shows us that the world has moved on. So people are all the trends that we have. It'd be like right now if there was an island somewhere that was quarantined and then apocalypse. He has a cell phone and everything, and he's pretty much accepted the fact that he's not getting off this island. And so when he said his boat was sunk, I said, because he didn't say by what. Well, he didn't say how it sank. But I thought that was interesting that the boat sank. So what did you think about that? Did you think it was anything important, or was it just like, oh yeah, it just happened to sink?
I couldn't remember if he mentioned it was rocky. I thought he might have said something about that it being a little rocky. And shout out to that Revenge of the Mummy mug you got, real quick.
Yeah. Oh wait, I
Hey.
got it on the wrong side. But yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought he mentioned something like that, but now that you bring it up, maybe he thought they might have hit rocks, but why would all of a sudden they be so close that they hit rocks that have been there the whole time there's been a quarantine zone? Uh, could there have been something or another group that sank it? And we do see they do mention throughout the film that they know there are other groups out there, and we are introduced to a new group of people who will most likely show up in the next film coming out next year. So uh, maybe there are people who are militarizing to either try to escape or because yeah, essentially this is a prison.
Mhm.
They've been sentenced to life. Like if you survive, great, but we're not gonna let you guys off because you could destroy the world with one drop of blood.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I think we talked about it kind of like in the car ride home as we were processing the movie of this idea of, well, why haven't there been any rescue attempts? But I mean, if you think about it, like at this point, some people are having children, but I would imagine for every child that's born, like we see quite a few people in this movie meet their end. For every child that's born, you're probably losing one or two people. And is it worth it to risk all of humanity to save a few, maybe a few hundred, maybe 100,000 people? Maybe, we don't really know how many people are left, but what would we do in that situation? If you were on the island, maybe, yeah, you would want to be saved. If you were off the island, would you really want to even accept, like, where would those people go? What
yeah,
country would accept those people? And it seems like from Eric that he doesn't know much about life in the quarantine zone, because he asked Spike, like, okay, what do we do next? Where do we go next? Like, you live here, you tell me. So it almost seems like they really don't know what's going on. I mean, you can assume maybe they fly over every once in a while. Maybe some government is trying to track how many people are left alive, but they're very much so cut off both ways. So for the governments outside, they don't know, would it be worth it to land somewhere and potentially get swarmed, try to do a rescue mission? I can kind of understand why they would say we can't risk the rest of humanity because of how fast it spreads. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept, about just the fact that, like, we're just trapped here, but you know what? It reminded me of Attack on Titan. Of course, they didn't know at the beginning of Attack on Titan, but I thought that was cool, and maybe that's why I was like suspicious of, in the next couple of movies, is there going to be some theme about like getting off? Because they made such a big point of being like, there is no off, there is no off, you know.
yeah. Especially like you said that introduction of Eric, and he mentions like, yeah, once you step foot on the island, there is no one coming to get you. Kind of almost the same rules that we were introduced to on the small island community we see in the
Mhm.
British Isles. Like, there's no help coming. There's no one to save you if you get lost out. If you can't make it back, that's on you.
Mhm.
And in terms of getting off the bigger island, if I feel like if one of those boats finds you out there, one of those military boats, I don't know if they're gonna let you touch land.
No, and you have to imagine some people have probably tried to sail
Hmm.
a boat, a yacht, anything out there, and they probably just sink them or shoot them or whatever. They wouldn't want to get close to them. So, I think this might be a good point to talk about as we transition into themes. What did you feel about the rest of the movie after they met up with Dr. Kelson? Because I think that's why I heard a lot of people say the movie lost them.
I will say about Dr. Kelson, and first of all, I did enjoy it because it was like a third shift in the movie. It brought about the
Hmm.
third act of um, Spike trying to learn how to be tough, be a man. Spike then going to try to save his mom. Then Spike going to understand what was that Latin phrase? Mortem in
Memento Mori.
momentum mori. What was that mean? What does that mean again? Accepting death or all things must die?
It's something like the Game of Thrones, like all men must die, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't
And
know. I didn't take Latin.
I didn't take Latin either. That's why it's a dead language. Probably had the rage virus. But us seeing him at like at first we're thinking like, okay, he's gonna be a madman. Is he gonna be quirky? And
Hmm.
it's like, no, he's a man that's been by himself for it seems like at least a
Hmm.
decade and a half
That's a great
minimum.
point.
Yeah.
He's as
So
sane as you can be for
yeah.
a situation. Like I feel like we're all a little crazy, we're all a little mad down here.
And we see him like, oh, well, he's burning all these bodies, he's collecting these bones, he's building this monument, but he's doing this to honor all these people who lost their lives in the
Hmm.
way that he can, a way that makes him feel good to honor them. Like he's
Yeah.
still doing. Is he doing it for himself? Yes, but is he doing it because he understands like none of you deserve to die if you did get affected, if you didn't get affected? Yes. Um,
Yeah, I liked his character a lot, and I think he's a character that's not often seen in these types of movies, but it's like he's an artistic person. Like I think in another life before the fall of the country, he probably was a person who liked art museums and
mhm.
he probably was well read and he probably liked opera and stuff like that. He's an artistic person. He's a very smart person. And so I think which like even the fact that he's figured out, okay, I'll use iodine because it'll protect me from the blood of the infected. And I think just the way he has like thought about life and he's boiled it down to this like
Literally
this
boiled
one
it down.
phrase to yeah, literally boiling it down, figuratively boiling it down. I really liked what his character represented. It's almost like a piece of just saying like this is my life's work. This is giving me something to do. It's giving me purpose. I would hope that other people like a museum would come and see this and ask these questions and honor this. And I think he was kind of like the perfect person to be the one to help the son understand. And he's like, look, I looked at your mother. Clearly, she has breast cancer that has moved to her brain or vice versa. And he explains to him in a way, like you can tell right from the beginning when he finds them that he's preparing this kid to understand death in a way that nobody else in his life has done so. They're all focused on survive, survive, survive. All you need to worry about is survival. And I think he balances it out the message that Jamie is trying to give him that death is inevitable. Like even if you don't die from the virus, your mom's not dying from the virus. She probably can't make this trip back, which is why I think she makes the decision to go ahead and end her life there. But it's inevitable. It's going to come for all of us, so you need to make peace with it. And I think in this world, the best thing you can do is make peace with death because it literally could come at any time for anybody that you love. And so I like that part. I wasn't super crazy about the morphine darts because he just started darting people up at the end of the movie.
Who couldn't he dart?
Right, he's like sedated Spike, which I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. But then he darted the mom, and I'm like, yeah, but you still gotta kill her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you still gotta at the end
Now
of it.
I know we only see him like because he darted Spike. We see him dart that alpha
Yeah.
infected and kind of puts him in a stasis and kind of like
Hmm.
okay, like they're kind of stuck. You're in like a dream, kind of almost a dreamlike state. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have darts that can slowly kill you or kill you.
That's true.
So we don't know what dart he shot her with.
And at first, I was like, well, why would she make the choice to die now? But then I thought about it, and I said, well, I think it was selfless. I think like we see her be so selfless. And I'm gonna be honest with you. At the beginning of the movie, I was like, damn, another like crazy, weak woman character
Hmm.
who's a burden to her family. I was really disappointed because the first 28 days later, even though Selena kind of did need a little saving at the end of the movie, but she was tough. She was taking care of herself. She was taking care of, I can't remember what the little girl's name is, but she was a good character. 28 weeks later, the mom, I guess I don't have an opinion about that,
Nah.
but I said, I don't want to see the mom just be a burden or a victim. And so I loved when they showed that, like, when we go on this road trip and we start to we see her be more lucid. She's a great mom. And the context that she gives that story about going on the road trip with her dad, that places her age for us, so we know that she was probably a young girl, at least 7 or 8 before the world ended. So she grew up in this from being a small child. And when they wake up, they fall asleep one night on their camping on the road, and they wake up and there's this dead bloater, and we see a flashback that she woke up to save her son. She woke up to save Spike and took care of that zombie. And so that lets you know, I mean, infected person, that lets you know that she was nothing to play with before she had that cancer.
No, she killed it with her
You
bare
know,
hands. Like,
with her bare hands in a jacket, she took care of that thing for her baby.
yes.
And this woman can't be, the son is, it's been about around 30 years. So we're saying this woman can't be more than maybe at the oldest 40, maybe
Oldest.
mid 30s,
Yeah.
something like that. So for her to be having this cancer going through her body, coursing through her body, she knows what cancer is. She understands that something is wrong with her. And she even tells Dr. Kelson that, like, I understand even when I'm doing and saying crazy things, that something is wrong with me. So I think her choice to die there was so that her son didn't have to feel responsible to get her back to die at home. And I would imagine that even a part of her understood that, like, her relationship with her husband was over. That he was kind of just taking care of her, but he wasn't, not in a loving way. Like, when you realize that she has times where she is lucid and you realize that she is not always volatile like that, because we only see her be volatile that one time at the beginning of the movie, so she's not dangerous. It recolors how he's treating her. It's like, this is your wife and she's dying of not, she's not, she knows who you are. She knows who her son is. She knows where she is most of the time. She's in pain, but his choice to kind of almost be like, I'm ready to move on with my life a little bit. You see why Spike is mad at him. At least I felt that way. I understood why Spike was mad at him.
Even when
So, mhm.
I was about to say, even when
No,
she's
go ahead.
yeah, even when she's volatile, she's doing it because she doesn't want Spike to go out. She doesn't want Spike to go into that danger. She doesn't want him to go out there. Hey, she's still a little boy. It's like maybe she can't, say that the nicest way because she is in pain because her brain is essentially her brain has experienced so much pressure from the cancer growing inside her skull that she can't be nice or lucid every time, but she don't want her baby boy to get hurt.
Let me tell you, somebody who suffers from migraines, I'm sure those headaches she was having was 30 million times worse.
Yeah.
You don't feel like being nice to nobody when your head is hurting that bad. Like,
No, no.
so what did you think about at the end of the movie, we see that Spike has gone back. He's dropped the baby off, and he's basically left a letter saying that he just seemed like got to go find himself. Like, how did you think about Spike's choice not to go back?
Now it was crazy that he was able to get that the newborn baby all the way back without the zombies confining him because of all the noise it makes. But this is the growth that the dad wanted for Spike. Now, is it how he envisioned it happening? No, but Spike grew up. He became a little tougher.
Mhm.
But he also learned new things about himself and about the world. And he's like, I need to go explore myself. Like, I want to go out here and try some new things to the best of our ability. Of course, the world's not like it was in 2002, but it's 2000 and whatever year it is. And he wants to see what it has to offer.
Mhm.
And I think that was very good for his character to get that chance to explore the whole new world.
Maybe he needed some more arrows. I would have been. I would have maybe went in and got a couple more arrows.
Yeah, because like once you hit an infected with an arrow, you can't pull it back. That's it. These are all one hitter quitters.
Now, do you think, what would be your weapon of choice? Because I understand why they're using arrows, because you don't want to really get in close contact with the infected.
Hmm.
but it also seems like the arrows require you to stand still to get good aim.
You
Like
gotta set
what
up.
would you use?
Give me some greaves, which is metal things on your arm, and an
Mm,
axe. A
mm-hmm.
sturdy axe. I promise I would have trained for so many years. I'm taking off every infected head. Uh, so I'll train with an arrow as well. But once they get to a certain distance, it's all bets off. Like we gotta fight, and you can't set up an arrow if it's going to be 10 feet away, and then there's going to be another one right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
If two are coming at you, how fast is your draw?
I say give me not throwing knives. I would have had a whole bunch of real small throwing knives because all you gotta do is hit their head.
But
Pop,
you got it
pop,
got
pop.
it got to hit their brain enough to kill them. You can hit them with a
True.
throwing knife, but if the skull, that forehead, super thick.
Probably couldn't kill an alpha with it either. Okay, so I would have throwing knives in a belt. I have a whole bunch of those. Then I'll have a katana in addition to it.
See, I know we're getting off topic. Can you put enough weight behind a katana when you're slicing? A katana is more of a slicing weapon than
Yeah.
it is a piercing weapon.
Well, as long as you slice in the head, so you pierce in the head or pierce in the cerebellum. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just feel like a good, sturdy, heavy axe.
Gotta be strong enough to use it
Yeah, you got
for
right
a
about
long
that.
period of time because you have to be able to swing. Let's say if it's 10 infected, you got to be able to swing probably 20 times with that axe. You
Mm-hmm.
probably could. See, that's the way we make a good team because you have the axe, I have the katana and the throwing knives, and then we'll just run from the alpha. I'm not
We
fighting that dude.
we ain't got nothing on alpha. We all gotta be honest with you. You want to own alpha? They six. I think the actor that portrayed the second alpha we see is a 6'8" man. That alpha look like he was built sturdy, and like in football they say it's a game of inches. Then that second alpha had all the inches.
Just real quick before we get into themes, my I will say this about the alpha. It was probably my most frustrating part of the movie for me, and one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Frustrating being, why do we keep hitting this alpha with morphine? If it's drugged up, let's cut the head off. Let's do something. Like, if we can drug it, we can tie it up. I know it's super strong, but I have built a guillotine, something. Let's cut this thing's head off. Number one, but number two, that was probably my most tense scene in the movie when they were running back through the water to get through the tide to get back to the island, and the alpha was chasing them because you see that Aaron Taylor Johnson is truly in panic mode there. Like he is scared of this thing, and he's pretty much held it together as much as he could up to this point. Like you could tell he's being brave for his son, but he's also a badass. Like Jamie can fight. Jamie is really really smart too.
Him and his
So
wife probably made a really great team back in the day.
yes, oh, they would have. But yeah, you can tell that he's truly scared and he's breaking down like dragon Spike in that water. Like he's running for their lives, and that alpha like that man, that is scary, and they get it right at the last minute. I thought that was probably my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah. Oh my god. See him drag Spike. Man, that dog out there. That boy was completely limp.
That's how you'd have been dragging me. No, I
Yeah,
wouldn't have failed. Not no moment like that. You gotta run, baby, or you
you
gotta
gotta
start
get up.
swimming, something.
Yeah, like my legs tired. Like they gonna be tired. Hamstring might tear, but I'd rather you be healing for the next 2 years of a torn hamstring than not being around to heal.
Listen, I'm sorry. We saw Grandpa training everybody on them arrows. What you need to be doing is cardio. That's how you survive this world. You listen because those little bloater things sneak up on you. You need to take them headphones out and listen. You need to do cardio, and you need to have something that's sharp enough to pierce the brain. That's how you survive. But definitely the cardio, because
Yeah,
sometimes you just got to run.
some running's all you can do, and we know these things, these rage infected, they don't get tired, so you can't get tired
Mm-mm.
either.
And they're not embarrassed to be naked either, so can't even shame them.
It's truly a game of inches, truly. So if you,
Uh,
you don't
so
like nudity,
thing,
I don't know if this is the movie for you.
yeah, because on that train scene, I was like, oh my god, that's not the last thing I want to see.
And imagine Eric looked up at that alpha, and you know it was staring back at him.
And it was hitting him in the face.
Oh, oh,
Oh,
his smile up his body. Oh,
make the choice because we saw that they used prosthetics clearly because it was a child on set. You know what? Never mind. Let's just
I gotta learn how to edit these. I gotta pull this clip.
let's just go to themes because the more you start thinking about it, the more you. It was unnecessary. It was
No, it was necessary. Uh, they went with the males, the alpha male version. What would an alpha male look like? And they said, "We know what we got to do."
so many important themes that Danny Boyle wanted you to take away from this movie, and all the videos I've seen on TikTok have been about that train scene. And I'm like, why did they decide? They were like, okay, so because you can build a prop so that way when somebody is running, it's just chilling there. But they were like, no, we just wanted. I said, oh my god, this is too much for me.
I know if I was an actor, I'd be like, just so y'all know, they ain't add much.
Oh my gosh, he was wild for that. And I know some prop designer was like, "We need more, more."
Oh my gosh, let's go back to things. I think we spoke about it earlier. One of the great things about this was the whole film was learning about death, what it meant to take a
Mm.
life, what it meant
Mhm.
to lose a life from someone close to you. It kind of encapsulates the whole circle of the film.
Ooh. Mhm.
Learning what death meant. And I think that was a very good lesson for children and for some adults as well.
I agree. I liked that we had to see him kind of embody that message that Dr. Kelson was trying to teach him. I also thought one of the themes that I enjoyed in the movie that I hope that they continue to carry through the next two is this idea of like Jamie wants to be he's embarrassed about his reaction to the smell and the sights and the experience of like death and taking a life. But I also kind of feel like it's important to hold on to that humanity a little bit because we do see him make this impulsive, reckless decision to go try to save his mom. But it's so important to his character development. It's so important to her development. I think just like him honoring her by trying to save her and her to know that he's okay and understanding what is happening with her and all that type of stuff. Like I hope that we'll see Spike continue to kind of reckon with like life and death and how much humanity he wants to hold in this world going forward. And I think even just watching his mom help the pregnant infected person give birth in Eric is a contrast who's so unsympathetic to it, which I think most of us in the audience probably would have been Eric. But like the consequences of your lack of sympathy and your lack of empathy, how empathy and sympathy are still so important in this world. And I think a respect for death, even though it's very common, is so important in this world. I think Dr. Kelson was a very, very, very important example in Spike's life. And I think as we see the next two movies, I hope that he will continue to kind of reckon with that and it be a lesson of like you still need to have some humanity and empathy and respect for life and death in this world.
Yeah, I love that that Dr. Kelson was able to help even remind the audience that
Mhm.
they're still people. Now I'm not saying let them bite you, but they're
Mhm.
still people. They were affected by a virus. So they're not choosing to be this way. So just because you have to kill them, which you do have to survive, doesn't mean you can't hon- honor the life they had previously and say, hey, I
Just like the mom, like the mom has something she didn't choose that she can't cure. But that doesn't mean as her husband that you give up on her. You
mhm,
just write her off as you're just waiting for her to die. And I felt like that was so extreme when Spike said that, but now I'm like coming back, I'm like, that is kind of what he was doing.
mhm.
He had pretty much just left her up in that room. The dad, a granddad was the one who was taking her out and everything. And it's like, mom has quote unquote a virus. She has a disease. Is she worth less because of something that's not in her control? she worth less empathy and less care because of something that's not in her control. So I really liked it, and the longer I've said on the movie, I have really started to like it more. I think as you think about the themes and how things tie in, I think it grows on you.
And you know what? I'm having a revelation too, baby. Because at first I was like, "Oh, come on, Jamie was trying his best," but then just seeing how far she was able to travel with Spike on their adventure. So when the dad tells you, like, "Oh, she does have her good times where she is," maybe she did do that walking that day. Maybe it was just a good day for her when they went on their little father and daughter walk. So I think
Hmm.
Jamie probably was moving on a little too fast. Like, take care of your wife. Take care of your wife.
Just still love her.
Yeah.
Like I'm not here to judge anybody in terms of like getting your needs met. 'Cause I do think we're still in an extreme situation. Like he is, it's extremely stressful to be a caregiver. I think it's extremely stressful to be watching someone die and you can't do anything to help them. I think it's extremely stressful to, we assume that his dad is a person who goes outside of the walls. Like we see in his flashback, he's been doing it since he was at least 15 himself. So we can imagine 15 years of risking your life, going outside the walls, losing people. I don't want to judge him too much because he has his own trauma, he has his own needs. He's trying to survive as best he can as well. But I think that this is what we mean when we say like gray characters, morally gray. And we talk about dilemmas in good writing where you can, nobody is 100% right or 100% wrong because it doesn't, in an apocalyptic world, it's hard to be all good or all bad, all right or all wrong. And this is the gray, complex storytelling that people were trying to give credit to another show. That I don't, we won't go into it because we do have episode 1 of our podcast. We talk about it, but I think when people talk about that complex writing, it's here. It's not on that HBO show. But I also think that the reaction to this movie probably shows why people sometimes say they want very complex writing, but do they really? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to be talked to like kindergartners, but I also think, do you really want that super complex storytelling?
Yes, because like we mentioned, there were people who were extremely upset, giving this real negative reviews, and when I watched, I'm like, oh, of course, there were some things that we've nitpicked and said like, oh, we didn't like them as much, but no, this was a good film. This did have those themes where you had to really sit there and think about it, and you might change your mind from day to day over the next couple days after watching that film on what you thought of a character, what you learned about a character. Even having this conversation with you, my thoughts on Jamie have shifted in certain aspects. So that's how you know you made a good film.
So I would say, if you like 28 Days Later, if you like 2008's Doomsday, you will probably like this movie. If you preferred like 28 Weeks Later, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, Train to Busan 1, only that type of infected or zombie movie, you may not love this. And I also think, let's give a little blame where it's due. The advertising is not really, there's action in it, but I think the advertising is not really matching what the movie is that you actually get. But I would still say it's worth forming your own opinion about the movie.
Yes, yes. Go into it with the expectations. I'm gonna see a solid film that's gonna add on to 28 Days Later, and I think you're gonna have a very good time.
If you like Danny Boyle movies, because he tends to like switch up a little bit sometimes with the actual story in his movies, I think you'll have a good time with this. And I think some people will probably watch it the first time in the theaters and be like, "Oh, what was that?" And then they'll like watch it again a couple years later on VOD, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, okay, I get it." I also would say, if you're a person, if you are dealing with grief, if you are like have recently lost a loved one or in the process, this may not be the movie for you right now. Like I do think that the ending of the movie may be kind of hard to stomach for a person not really thinking they're gonna go in and see somebody like a child dealing with losing a parent to an incurable disease. So I would say, if you kind of working through that yourself right now, that might be a good reason to hold off on seeing it.
Yes, yes. Well, I do think this film really was good in setting up for what could be potentially the next film. I think they had filmed both.
Talk about that.
Yeah, they filmed both of them back to back, so we can do some of our predictions maybe for the next film. I think when the scene opens up, we see a bunch of blonde-headed children in a room. Zombies attack them. The only one that was able to survive was a little boy who had to witness all his potential sisters and family members and his mom get turned into the infected.
Jimmy. Hmm.
Jimmy runs to the church, gets a golden necklace from a priest who's sitting there talking about the end of days and letting the zombies come attack him while Jimmy hid. And we're like, okay,
That was
where's
his
that going?
dad.
Huh?
That was his dad.
Oh, was that his dad? Because he kept saying father. I didn't know if he was his father or like a father in terms of for the church.
Oh, I thought he said dad, but I might be having a false memory. Okay.
One of us is right. We know that for a fact. But we see Jimmy doesn't come back to the end of the film, and we see him pop out with a bunch of kids wearing blonde wigs, going "Hi-ya" as they do Power Ranger themes and kill a whole bunch of infected. And we're like, "What is this?" And then the movie cuts off. We're like, "Oh snap! We setting up for
Yeah.
the next one."
And we did see some Jimmy graffiti in the movie too.
Yeah, we consistently kept seeing things that Jimmy or Jimmy's posse, Jimmy's trope had written. We do see that one person who I don't know what they did to cross Jimmy, but when they strung him upside down and they wrote Jimmy going down his stomach, like what the hell did they do?
And I said, how they sneak Jack O'Connell in this movie? That was so crazy. Because I remember when we came out, I said, or no, we were sitting in the show. I was like, that was Jack O'Connell from Sinners. And you were like, it was. And he's not on the IMDb cast list or anything like that. So I love that little surprise. And all the wigs. You know what it reminded me of? A little bit of the Teletubbies that he was watching at the beginning of the movie. But also, do you remember that scene in Cabin Fever where they go out to that cabin and they have that virus in the water? And do you remember the little boy who was like pancakes and he beat up? You probably don't remember. That's a super deep cut. If y'all
I
saw
remember
the
the movie.
original Cabin Fever, you would remember the little boy was like pancakes and he was flipping and he bit somebody.
Oh god.
It reminded me. That's how you know I watch too many horror movies. But I'm excited for the next movie. I want to see what like the velour ninjas are gonna do in the next movie. That was pretty fun.
Yes, yes. So I I can't wait. I think this movie is a worth watch if you enjoy zombie infected movies. If you enjoy very getting some at some points a kind of gray story, gray imagery
Hmm.
coming through. I think this is a good film to watch. Good solid film. Thank you, Danny Boyle.
I agree. I recommend it too.
Yes, so make sure you go down to the comments. Make sure you leave your thoughts like this. If you're watching the video, like it, comment. If you're listening to us, make sure you rate us all the stars. We want to hear from our people. Follow us at TikTok, YouTube, any other place. Find it below. You got anything you want to say to the people?
Let us know what you want us to watch next.
Yes, yes. And until then, we'll see you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.